Hold your breath. This isn't just another true crime tale. It's a plunge into a veritable house of horrors. A nightmare so grotesque it's burned into the dark annals of Philippine infamy as one of the most appalling, stomach-turning crimes ever recorded. Brace yourself for graphic, unsettling revelations that will claw at your nerves, send shivers racing down your spine, and leave you questioning the depths of human darkness. On December 10, 2021, at precisely 2:58 p.m., Cruz Maguad, a 48-year-old public school teacher at Mariano Uno Memorial High School, was immersed in the rhythm of repairs at Ban Elementary School, where his wife, Liela, served as principal. The air hummed with the steady clang of hammers and the faint scent of fresh paint. The Christmas holidays just days away, casting a fleeting hope of peace over the quiet afternoon. But 2 minutes later, that fragile calm shattered like glass. Cruz's phone vibrated, its shrill ring slicing through the noise. A neighbor's voice, trembling with a mix of fear and urgency, crackled through the line. Something was terribly wrong at the Maguad home. As he walked past their house, the neighbor had glimpsed chaos through a cracked window. Furniture overturned, belongings strewn haphazardly, as if a violent tempest had torn through the sanctuary. He hadn't dared enter, his instincts screaming danger, but he urged Cruz to investigate immediately. Alarm bells clanged in Cruz's mind, a cold dread coiling in his gut. He dialed Lela, who was on a business trip in Manila, her voice crackling through static as he begged her to drop everything and rush home. Dropping his tools with a clatter, Cruz sprinted to his truck, tires screeching as he raced through the rural roads of North Cotabato, dread tightening his chest like an iron vice, the rural landscape blurring past in a haze of terror. The Maguad children, 18-year-old Krisle Gwyn, affectionately called Gwyn, 16-year-old Krisle Lewis, nicknamed Boy Boy, and their recently adopted daughter Janice Seal, 17, were home alone in their sprawling farmhouse, nestled among hundreds of acres of farmland near the lush, untamed wilderness of Mindanao. None had called for help, a silence that deepened Cruz's growing terror with every passing second, each unanswered ring of his phone amplifying the dread pulsing through his veins. By 3:15 p.m., he screeched into the driveway, the air outside eerily still, broken only by the distant chirp of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the afternoon breeze. A blood-soaked blanket lay crumpled by the front door, its fabric stiff, encrusted with crimson, the rusty scent of blood mixing with the damp earth. Nearby, a kitchen knife glinted under the fading sunlight, its blades slick and gleaming with gore, its handle broken as if snapped in a frantic struggle. "Gwyn, boy," he bellowed, his voice raw and echoing into the void. But no answer came, only the oppressive, unnatural silence of a house holding its breath, its walls seeming to whisper with grief. Moving to the back door, he found it ajar, its lock splintered and forced it open with a trembling hand. Inside, the quiet was suffocating, heavy, as if the very structure mourned the horrors within. In the living room, he stopped cold, his heart lurching into his throat, a scream trapped behind his lips. There, sprawled across the blood-streaked floor, was Gwyn, his eldest, his kind-hearted daughter, her eyes forever closed in a mask of terror. A blood-soaked towel was wrapped tightly around her head, masking the savagery beneath. But her limbs and torso were a grotesque map of devastation. Deep, jagged slash wounds crisscrossing her skin, her neck savagely torn, flesh ripped apart in ragged tears that exposed bone and sinew. Crime scene photos would later reveal ants swarming her body, drawn to the carnage, rigor mortis already setting in, her blood partially coagulated, a testament to the brutality that had unfolded hours before. The sticky pools drying in the afternoon heat. Nearby by the main door lay Boy, his hands and feet bound with coarse rope, a gag of cloth muffling his final silent screams, his eyes wide with the terror of his last moments. Fresh stab wounds riddled his body, blood pooling in sticky, crimson lakes that spread across the floor like a grotesque abstract painting. The warmth of the blood still palpable, suggesting the attack had happened mere moments before Cruz's arrival, the violence so fresh it felt alive. But one person was missing. Janice, Panic surged through Cruz, a tidal wave of fear crashing over him, threatening to drown him as he roared her name, his voice cracking with desperation. Searching every shadowed corner, every locked room, his heart pounding in his ears. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she emerged from her bedroom, hair damp and clinging to her pale, ashen face. Her eyes wide with shock, her body trembling like a leaf caught in a violent storm. She was mute at first, words caught in her throat, her voice a fractured whisper of terror as she stammered, They, they attacked us. The house, it's chaos. Cruz fought to stay calm, gripping her shoulders to steady her, but his own heart raced, his hands shaking as he dialed 911, the phone nearly slipping from his grasp. Police arrived minutes later, their sirens slicing through the rural quiet, blue and red lights flashing against the farmhouse's wooden walls, stepping into a scene branded one of the most gruesome in Philippine history. Blood soaked the floors, pooling in dark, glossy patches that reflected the officers' grim faces. Furniture was overturned, cabinets pried open with brutal force, personal belongings scattered like debris after a hurricane, photographs of happier times lying shattered underfoot. At first glance, it screamed robbery, but investigators knew better. Valuables remained untouched, save for Gwyn's missing phone. Its absence, a chilling, personal clue. The chaos felt staged, deliberate, a carefully crafted mask for something far darker lurking beneath the surface, a motive rooted not in greed but in betrayal. Police didn't immediately dismiss Cruz and Liarela as suspects, methodically verifying their alibis with surgical precision. Cruz at Ban Elementary, miles away, backed by witnesses and time-stamped school records. Giala on her business trip, confirmed by hotel receipts and phone logs. Attention shifted to Janice's room, where disarray suggested a struggle, but inconsistencies nagged at the edges, tugging at the investigator's instincts. Outside, a blood-stained short-sleeved shirt lay discarded near the front door, its fabric stiff with evidence, the crimson stains stark against the faded cotton, suggesting the perpetrator had shed it in a panic and flight, desperate to erase their trail. 100 meters away, in a ditch choked with weeds, a plastic bag held bloody pants and underwear. Further proof of a hasty, frantic escape, the clothes discarded like a snake shedding its skin, heavy with the weight of guilt. Inside, the scene grew increasingly macabre. A broken-handled kitchen knife, its blade slick with blood, lay among scattered glass shards and broken bottles that littered the living room floor, their sharp edges glinting under the dim light. A machete, its edge notched from use, a baseball bat splintered at the tip, and a hammer, Cruz's own tool for home repairs, its head crusted with gore, each bloodied, each a weapon of choice. Their presence in the crime scene deepening the mystery, as if the killers had turned the family's own sanctuary against them. Crime scene analysts, clad in white suits, meticulously evaluated the blood, determining Gwyn was killed first, her wounds older, rigor mortis beginning to stiffen her limbs, the blood partially coagulated, while Boy's blood was fresh, still warm, his restraints, coarse rope tightly knotted around wrists and ankles, a gag of cloth muffling his cries, suggesting he was subdued, possibly tortured, before his brutal end. Multiple weapons and the sheer ferocity of the attack pointed to more than one killer. Too much violence, too much coordination for a single person to execute alone. The bindings on Boy indicating a chilling level of control and premeditation. A dance of death too intricate for one attacker's grasp. Cruz, pale and shaken, stood amidst the carnage, his voice breaking as he confirmed the weapons were his, tools for routine repairs, now instruments of unspeakable horror, their presence in the crime scene a bitter irony that deepened the mystery. A laundry machine in the corner hummed faintly, its cycle recently completed, yet no freshly washed clothes were found anywhere. Perhaps an attempt to erase evidence, a futile bid to scrub away the bloodstains of guilt. The machine's quiet whir, a haunting reminder of post-crime activity. The brutality of the attack sparked an immediate, relentless manhunt, local authorities galvanized by the heinous nature of the crime, their resolve hardened by the sight of such carnage. Vice Mayor Josedo Pinol of Malang, North Cotabato, announced a 200,000 peso reward for information leading to the culprits, while Mayor Pip Lungan of Tulunan offered an additional 50,000 peso bounty, the combined 250,000 pesos underscoring the gravity of the investigation and the growing demand for justice in the wake of such unfathomable violence. The community, once peaceful, now trembled with fear and outrage. Whispers of the House of Horrors spreading like wildfire through the farms and villages of Mindanao. Autopsies conducted over 2 grueling days starting December 13th, 2021, painted a grisly, heart-wrenching portrait of the violence. Gwyn endured 32 stab and slash wounds, some so deep they nearly severed her limbs and neck, her head almost decapitated, her upper arms slashed to the bone, exposing muscle and sinew, the backs of her hands purple and raw with defensive wounds. Proof she fought desperately, clawing at her assailants with every ounce of strength, her final moments a blur of terror and resistance. Boy bore 51 knife wounds, some so deep they exposed bone and internal organs, their edges jagged and brutal, red marks on his neck hinting at strangulation, his skin bearing the imprint of the rope that bound him. No defensive scars. Caught off guard, helpless against the onslaught, his body a canvas of agony. Blunt force trauma from the hammer and bat scarred their bodies, the bat's splintered tip and the hammer's heavy head leaving clear marks, aligning perfectly with the recovered weapons. But no robbery motive held water. Only Gwyn's phone was missing, its absence a personal, intimate clue, suggesting the killers knew the family intimately. Their motive rooted not in greed, but in a dark, personal vendetta cloaked in violence. Rumors swirled online, accusing Janice, fueled by her survival, the family weapons, and the locked front door. Locked from the inside, no signs of forced entry, narrowing suspects to those with intimate access. Under mounting pressure from social media and a community desperate for answers, she recounted the attack in halting, trembling words. Studying with Gwyn in their shared bedroom, the quiet broken by boy's screams, a blood-curdling cry that tore through the house. Then seeing 3 shadowy men burst in, armed with the knife, machete, bat, and hammer, attacking Lewis first, his body crumpling under their blows, then turning on Gwyn with a ferocity that froze her blood. In terror, she fled upstairs, locking herself in her room, hiding under the bed, her breath shallow, heart pounding, too frightened to call police lest the attackers hear. She texted the family group chat, "Mom, help!" her fingers shaking, and posted on social media in a desperate, fleeting moment, "Help, someone's breaking into the house. I don't want to die. I'm hiding in my room. Help!" before deleting it, fearing the killers might see and drag her out. Unable to reach Lala by phone, her calls unanswered, she waited in silence, the house falling quiet only as crews arrived, the screams replaced by a deafening stillness. She claimed she showered to calm her nerves, the water washing away the blood splatter on her skin, emerging just as crews found her. But her story unraveled like a threadbare tapestry. Forensic evidence showed Gwyn, not Boy, died first, contradicting Janice's timeline, her blood older, rigor mortis setting in. Her room was ransacked, yet she said she locked herself in. Why the chaos? Crews recalled calling her phone, hearing it ring unanswered, clashing with her claim it was off, her lies piling up like bricks. The baseball bat, once Boy's protection on his bunk, now Janice's after she claimed the top spot. The hammer hidden behind the washer, known only to Cruz, Gwyn, and Janice. These details tightened suspicion around her like a noose, each revelation a nail in her story's coffin. A delivery driver's testimony added fuel to the fire. 18 minutes before the neighbor's call, he arrived announcing his delivery, but got no response. The silence eerie. Peering through the door, he saw a woman, her face pale, eyes wide, staring back before vanishing into the shadows. A fleeting glimpse that raised doubts about Janice's whereabouts and actions during the critical moments surrounding the attack. The locked front door, no forced entry, pointed to someone with a key, someone with intimate knowledge. Cruz, alibied by school records. Alela, confirmed on her trip. Or Janice, whose presence and shifting narrative cast a long, dark shadow of suspicion. As a minor, arresting her was legally tricky in the Philippines. Police placed her under the care of the Department of Social Welfare and Development. Her fingerprints on the weapons explained by living there. But her evolving lies raised red flags that fluttered like warning banners. On December 15th, Leela, sifting through Janice's room in a haze of grief, found a contact tracing form bearing a QR code, but not in Janice's name. It belonged to Esmeraldo Canelo Jr., or Aldo, a 17-year-old sacristan from a local church, someone Janice knew from her orphanage days, his name a silent accusation whispered in the shadows. Witnesses confirmed Aldo's presence. One saw him drop Janice off near the house that morning, a nervous figure in a hoodie. Another saw him asking directions, his voice tense, eyes darting, on the morning of the murders. On December 16th, Janice confessed to her lawyer in a trembling, halting voice. She, her 21-year-old boyfriend, a figure never identified, possibly a phantom conjured from her fractured mind, and Aldo killed Gwyn and Boy Boy, driven by a deep-seated jealousy and resentment that festered like a wound. Feeling overshadowed by the love Cruz and Lala lavished on Gwyn and Boy Boy, shaped by years in an orphanage where emotional warmth was a rare, fleeting dream, she saw them as obstacles to the affection she craved. Her impulse to eliminate them, a twisted bid to become the sole child, basking in their exclusive attention. On December 18th, she formally confessed to police, though inconsistencies lingered, her boyfriend's identity a mystery, her story shifting like sand. Some speculating the murders were even more brutal, with Lewis possibly tied up, forced to watch Gwyn's agony before meeting his own end. Aldo surrendered voluntarily, his blood on the discarded clothes in the ditch confirming his role, his face pale with regret. Both minors faced supervision under social welfare until 21, then adult prison, Janice sentenced to 31 years, Aldo to 29, their fates sealed by the weight of their crimes. The motive was a dark tapestry of envy, deprivation, and betrayal. Adopted in July 2021 after Gwyn's persistent urging, Janice seemed to fit seamlessly into the Maguad family, her smile masking a storm within. But warning signs flickered like lightning on the horizon. In August 2021, Lala's parents fell ill with COVID-19, and Cruz set aside 10,000 pesos as an emergency fund, only to find it gone, vanishing like smoke. Janice claimed thieves stole it, but the next day a significant sum was discovered hidden in her school bag, crumpled and stained, her confession forced out under questioning, a breach of trust that stung like a betrayal. The family, sympathetic to her troubled past in extreme poverty and orphanages, chose to forgive. Gwyn especially adamant that Janice deserved another chance, her kindness blinding her to the danger. Janice apologized, her words hollow, and the family hoped it marked the end of her misdeeds. But her behavior shifted in the months before the murders. Once known for a fierce work ethic that swayed her adoption, she grew indolent and irresponsible, neglecting chores, her apologies empty whispers, her eyes distant, haunted. Most disturbingly, on the morning of the murders, she addressed Cruz and Allah as mom and dad for the first time, a chilling, calculated sign of her psychological unraveling, a declaration of intent wrapped in innocence, the emotional weight of what was to come hanging like a shadow over the house. Her past unraveled online, a puzzle pieced together by amateur web sleuths as the case went viral on Filipino social media. She wasn't an orphan, as claimed, but a girl found alone on a boat in Cotabato on September 22, 2013, aged 7 to 8, claiming amnesia, her identity lost to the waves. Local authorities and concerned citizens circulated a missing persons notice, but when no one responded, interest faded, and she was placed in an orphanage, her past buried under layers of silence. Born in 2005 as the youngest of three, Janice's early life was a crucible of turmoil, her father's severe gambling addiction shattering their family, her mother filing for divorce in 2008, salvaging what little remained, dividing assets among the siblings before they were separated into orphanages. By 2020, she'd briefly reunited with her biological family, but allegedly severed ties, dismissing them as too poor to matter. her words cold and cutting. Her biological mother, attending Gwyn and Boy's funeral in a flood of tears, broke down repeatedly, apologizing with a mother's guilt, begging forgiveness for a daughter she'd lost and couldn't save. Cruz and Lala, grappling with their own immeasurable grief, encouraged her to meet Janice, urging a full confession if remorse was real. But Janice refused, blocked by protocol, her silence a final act of defiance. Screenshots surfaced online. Janice plotting murder in a chilling exchange with an unknown figure, questioning if God would forgive her sins, her words laced with a warped faith. Would anyone still accept me if I commit murder? But God will forgive me if I ask, right? Some speculated she drew inspiration from the 2009 horror film Orphan, a chilling parallel to her actions, its plot of a deceptive girl adopted, then betraying and murdering her new family, echoing her own dark path. Though this seems speculative, a dramatic lens cast in hindsight. At trial, starting March 2022, Janice's demeanor shocked even the hardened. She smiled, laughed, showing no flicker of remorse as she faced Cruz and Lala, her eyes cold, her lips curling with a haunting indifference that left the courtroom gasping. Cruz and Lala, their hearts shattered, expressed in interviews a willingness to forgive if she'd shown even a shred of genuine remorse. But her unrepentant cruelty made their grief unbearable, a wound that refused to heal. They became vocal advocates for amending Republic Act 9344, the Philippine law limiting juvenile accountability, setting the minimum age of criminal liability at 15, allowing 15 to 18-year-olds responsibility, but placing them in youth centers or rehab, not adult prisons. They argued it was too lenient, that Janice's age shouldn't shield her from full accountability for such a brutal, premeditated act, a sentiment echoed by many who felt the law failed victims like Gwyn and Boy. Lewis's kindness, giving up his room for Janice, sleeping on the living room couch to make her feel welcome, only deepened the betrayal, his generosity a stark contrast to the violence that claimed him. Cruz vowed never to see Janice again, his grief a raw, unending ache, his voice breaking as he told reporters, "I can't control myself if I ever see her, not after what she did to my family." Lula, too, turned away, her garden now a graveyard of memories, the roses wilting under the weight of loss. The investigation revealed more shocks. Lewis's phone, stolen and damaged by water, surfaced in a drug bust that same day, December 18, 2021, traced to a 17-year-old buyer with no link to the murders, sold by Aldo in a desperate bid to dispose of evidence. Forensic analysis confirmed blood on the discarded clothes was Aldo's. His surrender a quiet admission of guilt, his face pale with the weight of his actions. The exact sequence of events, whether Lewis watched Gwyn's agony, bound and helpless, or if the attack unfolded in a different order, remains murky, Janice's confessions shifting like shadows. Her so-called boyfriend, a phantom never caught, possibly a fabrication to shield her true intent. Some speculate the murders were even more brutal, a calculated cruelty beyond her words, but the truth lies buried in the silence of that blood-soaked house. This is a tale of cruelty, betrayal, injustice's fragile limits, a house of horrors where love turned to murder, where kindness met its end in a storm of violence. Hit that like button, join our membership for exclusive content, and dive into True Crime Revealed for more chilling mysteries from beyond. I'm Don. Stay with me in the shadows, where the darkest stories linger.